Star Trek, the ultimate franchise. These are the voyages of 3 veteran Trekkies, Rich, Ian, and Toby. Their ongoing mission? To explore the vast Star Trek universe, to seek out new perspectives and fresh debates, to boldly go where no podcast has gone before. Beyond the Final Frontier.
Hello and welcome to Beyond the Final Frontier. I muffed it. I've never muffed it before then.
Start again.
Yeah, I will. Hello and welcome to... Yeah. It's going to be one of those now. Hello and welcome to Beyond the Final Frontier, a Star Trek podcast with me, your host, Rich Matthews, and my fellow Voyagers, Mr. Ian Spelling. That's him clapping. And Mr. Toby Weidman.
Hello. That's not me clapping.
I forgot to say hello. I was so busy clapping.
No,
hello, everybody. Hello, boys.
Today's episode, we are doing our update on our feelings about Starfleet Academy, having 6 episodes now aired. So that means we'll broadly be covering episode 2, beta test, episode 3, which was called, I've got it in front of me, that's not good, Vitus Reflux, episode 4, Vox in Excelso, episode 5, Series Acclimation Mil, aka DS9 Light, and episode 6, Come Let's Away. So, after our summary of our thoughts on the pilot, please check that out if you haven't heard it already before you're listening to this one. We were on a continuum of feelings on this, with probably me at the most positive.
I think you were an 8, weren't you? Ian was a 7 and I was a 6.
Ian in the middle, and you're very much in the, as we'd expect, fine.
Our cranky bastard.
So I think, Jet, before we go into individual episodes,
We're the one with the most taste, actually, if we think about it. But go ahead.
Yeah, well, we don't like to acknowledge that. Don't speak.
True, cut that out. Don't even use that. Editing.
I'm just like Blade Runner, dig in now while you can.
Oh, I still have it right here. Blade Runner is still totally overrated. I did myself a little note. Make sure I shit on Blade Runner.
I'm going to play nice on Blade Runner. Now I've got too much ammo.
Yeah. You know better at this point.
Yeah. Before we get into the actual episode by episode, just wondering if we could give our overall feeling right now of where we are at this point. Ian.
I really enjoy the show in general. What I love about it overrides what I dislike intensely about it, is the best way to put it. I think it's really cool to see young cadets. I think it's very cool to see a woman in command who is so old and has experienced everything. My issue with that is there's got to be other things that she could talk about, for example, that we haven't seen. I understand that it's difficult to do that, but we don't need every reference from her or the show to be things we've seen or heard about before. And that's a big issue for me. It falls right into what you joked about being Deep Space Nine light. Guess what, guys? There were other shows. Or every time we see, the Doctor. Guess what, guys? There had to be other experiences other than what happened on the Voyager, and other characters and other historical figures in 800 or 900 years. So those are my big issues with the show. I also just want to praise the music. I think is terrific on this show.
That's a real highlight for me
the
too.
Cinematography, while some of it is too dark for my taste.
Lens flare.
Yes, I literally have the word lens flare right here. Do I have an issue with it being so much of a teen soap? Yes, because I've outgrown that as a 60-year-old guy. If I was the age of the audience that they're really probably shooting for with this show, it's probably perfect as an entry point for both longtime Star Trek fans who get a lot of the fan service type of things that they're putting in there, and as an introduction. I think the way they handled our Deep Space Nine light episode, was a very good way of introducing Deep Space Nine to newcomers to the franchise. So say what you will, I thought it was really effective track laying for newbies. So I love the performances. I like the chemistry between a lot of the actors. And again, this is the thing that kills me, is some of the dialogue. I have lines written down here, passion for death is outweighed only by passion for life. There's been a tragedy, don't compound it with ignorance. There's some unbelievably good writing here. And then you just get some storylines that are ridiculous with easy, what's the best word for it?
I'd say
easy way out.
Just lazy.
Writing.
It feels lazy to me.
Yeah. And then the one thing that drives me absolutely nuts. Allow me to read from my little list here. Master debater, dick, dude, like, the cops came, pissy, F it up, big job, wimp ass bird boy, you have a firm booty, enough jib jab, wanked spanked, the hills are alive with the sound of murder, spooge, I'm honestly scared for you, babe, don't be a dick. What is that? Why are we having 1990s
you missed out
dialogue?
You missed out Morning Wood there, Ian.
Morning Wood too, yeah.
Too, yeah.
Why are we getting 1990s LA vernacular? Ooh, that was Long Island Jewish, wasn't it? Vernacular. I'm a nice Jewish boy from Long Island, for anybody wondering. You'd think after, so many years in New Jersey, I would have lost that. But
No, apparently not.
Apparently not. But yeah, those are my issues. Those are my pros and my cons. Yeah. I really enjoy it. There are just certain anachronisms and weird oddity things in here that just completely throw me off.
Yeah.
My 2 cents.
Yeah, Tobes.
I mean, overall, I'm still mixed. I think there've been some high highs, but there's also been some low lows for me. It's interesting what you were saying there. I think, again, I've been discussing this a lot with my friend Stuart about how I perhaps need to reframe my own how I'm viewing it.
I know where you're going with this. Yes, I agree with you.
In terms of, I'm in my 50s. I grew up watching TOS, TNG, DS9, that whole lot. This clearly isn't aimed directly at me. It's got stuff in there that are good things for me to enjoy, but equally so, like the modern music, as you mentioned, the language there, and some of the young adult hijinks, they're not for me. But as I said, so those might annoy me, but I have to think that maybe there are clearly plenty of people who are enjoying it, and so they are liking that side of it. And so I have to maybe, it's not that I can't be critical, I still can and I will, but I have to bear that in mind. But I have to bear that in mind when I'm watching the show. And so something that maybe initially gets my hackles up, I have to then relook at it and sort of, why is that getting my hackles up, and is it because I'm bringing something that is based on my love of old Star Trek, because this isn't old Star Trek, and so I'm kind of mixed on it. That one of the problems that I had is that they've been doing a lot of character building and then framing the stories around that. And what I want are good stories that within that builds the characters. So I learn about the characters through the story.
Through behavior, through action.
Yeah, exactly. And
good writing, that.
So I think episode 6 addresses that. That's what it did. But up to that point, I think the focus has been on filling out the characters, and so the stories haven't been that engaging to me.
That's interesting, because my overarching feeling after episode 6, and it mirrors what you said, Ian, which is all the member-berry canon nods, and and always making sure that you're drawing attention to the show's, the franchise's wider history. It's sort of negating what I think the strength they've actually created, which is when they ground it in the fact that how it came to be in the overall storyline we can ignore, but the burn was a reset that the Starfleet and the Federation's position in the quadrant is much more tenuous than it's been for a millennium almost, and therefore Starfleet Academy is much closer to the end of the spear in terms of the danger it can get into, how it's got to be more on the front foot and be more in the field, and I like the fact that Starfleet Academy itself is the ship which flies, and that means that backdrop does facilitate having these young cadets in the fray in a way that wouldn't have happened. It would have been crazy in the Berman era when Starfleet Academy was just the school. And that, when they play to that, and not even in the big battle episodes like episode 6, when they play to that, I think they do in episode 2 with how they deal with the Beta Z situation, I think the show finds itself. And that strength, when it's foregrounded, diminishes all of the criticisms which I share both of you. I agree with all your points so far. And then you marry that with a very simple thing for me, which is that I prefer the timelessness approach to Star Trek of both the Roddenberry era, the Berman era, which is that the dialogue is sort of out. It's not tethered to vernacular. It's not tethered to contemporary slang, and therefore that's the reason if the current generation watch back, visually it dates, but the way people speak is timeless, and I think that's been lost. But if I'm enjoying it, I'm enjoying it, and that's probably the difference for me with this than something like Discovery, which is, they had similar things, but they sort of punctured through, and it's like, and it was very difficult. Weirdly for me, the fact that it's common, these anachronisms and the contemporary language, it's a bit annoying, but because it isn't unusual, suddenly it's not someone screaming fuck really loudly or Tilly, in Discovery, like, oh, what? Or Picard doing it. This, I don't mind it quite as much. And so if I'm enjoying it, it doesn't matter so much. And if they're foregrounding what is genuinely, I think, the best concept they've had in a long time, because it's a new concept, the Starfleet Academy ship and the Federation and Starfleet being reborn, in the same way that has some of the spirit of Prodigy that we all enjoyed, with them sort of the ship and them grabbing onto the ideals of Starfleet in a far-flung place, then it works and it has potential. But for every moment, there's a oof. If we hadn't had episode 5 and then even more so episode 6, I'd be far more damning right now. So it's going to be interesting to see where we go. So what I'm saying is, I don't like everything being high stakes of Discovery, and that was one of its problems. For this and the scenario, they can have higher stakes because it makes more sense. It makes sense that they can be right there on the brink, and that is the moments when they seem to know how to write the character behaviours that illustrate who they are more, which you're talking about, Tobes, I think. So I'm mixed too.
I would say I'm going to praise the writers because I think they are reaching for profundity.
Yes.
In what they're doing. I don't think they are necessarily hitting the mark a lot of the time. But I have to at least admit and say that I am enjoying the fact that they are trying to do that. I also love the fact that they're unapologetically sticking their middle finger up at the far right and right wing, and however you want to describe it. It's doing a really good job of being inclusive, and are they doing it too much? Maybe. Is it a bit too blunt sometimes? But ultimately,
so
I'm
was the
loving that
original
aspect.
series back in its day.
Yeah,
if we're being honest.
Took the words right out of my mouth.
Yeah.
We talked about that recently.
You were going to say Blade Runner sucks, but I'll take these words instead.
But you always, that's always very close in my mind. So let's go through episode by episode to see what we think, and chart that journey. So I'll kick off as normal on this, if that's okay. Episode 2, beta test. Now, interestingly, as so many of these episodes have been divisive in the fan discussions that are going on, and this one in particular tends to polarize people a lot. I really enjoyed this one. I actually preferred this one to the pilot. That's probably because, as I mentioned before, I liked the exploration of the new version of the Alpha Quadrant. I liked hearing about what had happened to Beta Z. I liked the concept of the psionic wall, how they felt betrayed by Starfleet, and by the Federation. And crucially, I love the central romance between Caleb and I can never remember her name, Terima. And they, for me, are the standouts of the series so far. They glow, and their characters are engaging, interesting, and even when they're not written great, the two actors are keeping it going, keeping it alive well. I liked this sort of. I was a bit worried about what it would mean, the inhibitor and things, but then it was also quite nice to have a new dimension to the Betazoids. They've tended to be, I was going to say one note, that's not correct, two notes with Deanna and Roxana, but well explored and interesting. But it's interesting to have a new dimension, to see more of them. And I like, to reflect what you just said, Tobes, the wearing the agenda on the sleeve. The young people must have a voice. They want to be part of the Federation. How can we make this happen? I quite like the negotiation. I quite like the modelling of compromise and the importance of gesture, of having the new Starfleet Federation headquarters being on Beta Z and what that would mean. And I really wanted Caleb and Terima to get together. I've heard a lot of criticisms and read a lot of criticisms about their argument as being the thing which seems to bump a lot of people, saying that it didn't work, it was forced. But this is where I go, these are teenagers, they're meant to be anyway, or they're young, they're adolescents. That's the sort of stupid shit they do to each other all the time. They pick fights for no reasons, misunderstand each other in a defensive, and because they're as new to relationships as they are to Starfleet. So I didn't bump on that. And this was, so I came out of episode 2, the pilot in episode 2, very hopeful indeed. Still the same things we've talked about, the same niggles, but they're niggles at this point rather than issues for me. So,
well, I'm similar to you in that I enjoyed this a lot more than the pilot. In fact, out of the 6 episodes, it's probably joint second for me, which seems to go against a lot of the fans. I think we're in the minority in that. I think a lot of people have put this as their least favourite.
Hate this episode.
But it was a clear, simple premise, low-key, character-focused. The pilot was very much a wham bam, thank you ma'am, kind of, let's throw some action in there and introduce way too many characters. It sort of focused it down a little bit, and I liked that aspect of it. I think it also was trying to make a parallel with current world politics, particularly the US, which is sort of becoming more and more isolationist. Yeah, I mirror what you said, and I loved the chemistry between the two young actors. Really liked that. I equally had no problem with the Betazoids and the presentation of them and how they have changed from what we know. And, throw in the Doctor singing some opera with...
I forgot that. That was great.
Yeah.
It was so long, though. That was an opera unto itself.
Yeah.
It was great. And I was like, really? He's still singing? Is anyone noticing?
That's a broad thing, which I intended to mention at the top, which is all of it's too long. These shouldn't be hours. But that's a common drama virus at the moment, is everything's too long.
I didn't really get the whole whale analogy either.
That's just trying to get Star Trek 4 in.
Yeah, I know. A big thing that doesn't really care about you lets you remember that whatever you do not matter to this whale.
Right.
It's
All right,
free.
my turn here. It is. I like this episode. I wanted to love it. Part of it is its proximity in the run of the series. I almost wish 6 was 2.
Yeah.
Because I think you needed to go from the introduction to more of the world building for the show itself,
Yeah,
rather than jump right into a character episode. Mind you, the fact that they took my 2 most interesting characters and explored them was totally fine by me. If it was episode 3, I would actually just have been a little happier. You know, you had certain stuff in there that I thought was silly. The whole mucus thing was just, pure silliness.
Forced comedy and irrelevant, right?
Right.
But it did give us. He's literally sat on the fence, and she commented that. I thought that was very funny.
Yeah, that was good.
Yes. The importance of tiny acts of service. So they did some little teeny bits of world building in there. And the title of the episode is something that, I love. Beta test, because it's a beta test and it involves beta Zs.
Yeah.
And I just thought that was a really cool spin on things. So that's what I want the show to be, is that smart. As smart as episode 2's title. And right now, I think a lot of it is that criticism. It's like Star Trek 90210. This episode felt a lot like that. We'll get to the War Games episode that was totally 90210 meets Dawson's Creek meets blank, 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 romantic teen episode type of thing. But I thought there was a good deal in here to like. And there were some explanations. I think it was good to get 2 seconds with, Tig Notaro again. She always brings it for me. I think she's great.
She's from Disco, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's
no comment.
Yeah. So what was the song he sang? Papageno?
It is Mozart, a magic flute, and then they do Beethoven. It's from Fidelio.
And it just went on and on and on and on and on. And to your point, Rich, that was just too long.
Apparently, those bits that they sang do have a relevance to the story. I remember reading that in terms of what the story of that music or the lyrics.
Good for them playing to the high crowd, but
yeah.
Did any of us get that?
I couldn't tell you what it was. It was only what is it? It was probably Mr. Nemechek, Dr. Trek, watching his videos on YouTube that I picked that up from.
And then you get little things that some people think are smart, or some people think are just fan service. What was it? Boothby Memorial Park.
Oh yeah.
They
only had one caretaker, right? Only ever one. How many over hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years?
All over the galaxy. Yeah. But it's the Boothby one that.
And what's the name? And then weirdly, they have that atrium they keep talking about, which for love or money is not a character, is it? That we've heard of. Right. What do they call it? And because of the Boothby thing and all the other Easter eggs, you're going, oh my God, has they found something I don't know? And you're like, oh God, and you're checking. You go, it's nothing. Why? Then why?
Right.
It's crazy. That's so inconsistent.
The mention of Rakticino. All of that kind of stuff. So again, part of me loves that, and all right, we're paying attention. But if they said, Persephone juice, you and I would all be going, "What is Persephone juice?" And it might, again, it wouldn't have any resonance because that happened 400 years ago instead of 800 years ago. We know what happened 800 years ago because we saw it Next Generation.
Yeah,
it's a tough one. I don't envy the writers trying to do what they're doing, which is thread in the past with the deep future. It's
definitely a mandate.
And it's easy enough for us to sit here and be Monday morning quarterbacks and criticize things, but on the other hand, you got to get them in there. Yeah. It's just a question of balance and frequency, frankly.
Well, talking of balance, let's run into the force field that is Vitus Reflux.
Can I get my 2 pennies worth in on this one first? I really didn't like this episode. It wasn't for me at all. It's kind of a young adult storytelling. I'm inter-school rivalry pranks. I'm just not interested in. I'll give it 2 points. 1 for the warp core pajamas, and 1 for the Shanann again pun, which was wonderful. And then the rest of it, I didn't like at all. Over to you, boys.
Why wasn't it Parisi Squares? Why wasn't it? Why was it? So we talk about the contemporary language. Obviously this is a problem for all of us to some degree. Fucking laser tag. Why, after a millennia of phasers and disruptors and repulsors and all the ulcers you could possibly think of and all of this, why would they say laser tag? Why would laser tag even be a thing? And it was just that. And this is a case of when you go, it shouldn't bother me. I wish I was my better self when I heard that. But I was just like, oh, fuck, really? Don't do that.
I mean, surely it should be phaser tag.
It should be anything but laser tag. It shouldn't be something you go and do in a mall. Now, it's not even now. As Ian, as you said, in the 90s. I was like, wow, that's bonkers. This is where it's worth me noting that I will be harder now because, as we pointed out, there's clear quality in here, and they show they can do it. So when they don't, when they pretty unilaterally fail, then it's harder to find nice things to say. So this was a real, having thought after episode 2 that, actually the adolescentness of this, the young cadets, all of this, I might quite enjoy this. This was just like subpar 90s Saved by the Bell bullshit.
It's because they resorted to one-dimensional, cliched, tropes.
After another. Yeah, one after another. I mean, my joke is Vitus Reflux gave me acid reflux. It was so predictable, was my biggest issue with it. And yes, we do need to establish the characters and their archetypes. But, again, to do it with flat, plain old laser tag, it didn't make any sense to me. There could have been some other group activity that they had to undertake to get to the same results. Oh, this one is going to be good at this. This one's going to be bad at that.
Three-dimensional chess. I mean,
right.
There are lots of options in Star Trek.
They could have created a new game. Yeah. And even just as a plot point said, this one was created in, 2622, by, they could have even done whatever and, thrown a familiar character in there. This was created by...
And a great example of when they do that is the comic book in episode 6.
Yes.
And that works because it isn't something we know.
Oh,
episode 6.
Right. It is episode... I thought you were talking about the book in episode 5, but no, yeah.
No, in episode 6, the comic book, the ship, it has history. For them, it doesn't for us. That's fine.
Yep.
And it works.
Although, why are they wearing TOS outfits? We'll get to that. Carry on.
All right, I'm good there. Have we all discussed acid reflux?
I would say that I think we're in the minority. From what I've seen in terms of people rating, people seem to love this episode.
My
Much
least
more than
favorite
episode
of the
2.
6. So.
Yeah, no, same. Easily.
Yeah, this was by far... I came out thinking, oh no, is this it? Now, is this...
Even the Alien Resurrection basketball shot, I was just like, well, are they trying to say she's Ripley? I mean, come on.
No, but the thing is, sometimes with New Trek is you because they have this problem with Star Trek, let alone other franchises, part of you goes, do they even know that that's in Alien Resurrection?
There's that. And I had a laugh because episode 6, they had the white basketball. Yeah. I don't know if you guys caught that, but there was somebody standing around in the back with a white basketball.
Yeah.
Centuries of evolution, and we've gone from orange to white. That's the evolution of a basketball.
It's got holes in it, though. It's got holes in it.
It's a holy basketball.
Yeah.
I'll give one more shout out. I'll talk about this more, but there's a little moment in this episode with the blonde dude from the War Academy. It's a very little moment on the stairs with him and Jaden, and I liked that it was very subtly introduced here. It's fleshed out later.
That's true. I'd forgotten that. That's a good point.
That's a nice little moment.
Yeah, and considering they had what looked like talking plant, they had talking fungi, they looked like talking plants.
It was a cross between Groot and Little Shop of Horrors, wasn't it?
Well, that's what I was going to say. Why didn't someone say feed me or and have it go feed me? That would have been awesome and witty, but they didn't. Okay, so moving on to episode 4, Vox in Excelso. Now this one was hard to unpick for me in terms of what I thought of it. Because in theory, in terms of what they're doing, it's sort of interesting. And I like we're talking about why laser tag, why that. I like the debate idea as a side of it, although they've got to stop Mary suing Caleb. He can't be good at everything. It didn't make any sense to me. His background would mean he's also a great orator and great at debate, and that didn't make any sense. But fundamentally, while I found the exploration of what has happened to the Klingon Empire interesting, and I couldn't
Was that all new to you?
Yeah.
Okay, because I thought that might be a disco thing that I'd missed, because I was completely flummoxed by what had happened to the Klingons. I was like, what?
So I'm very aware of the post J.J. Abrams era, which Kurtzman is a legacy of. This desire to sort of slaughter all the main races. They blew up. In the Kelvin universe, they blew up Vulcan and Romulus, and then in Picard they've blown up Romulus again, and now in Starfleet Academy they've blown up Kronos. I say Kronos, I can't say the new way.
It's Kronos.
Kronos or something. Yeah, exactly.
And Kalis.
You don't know how to say it until you've heard it in the original Klingon. That's what I mean. That's why I couldn't unpick. So I liked the way it was explored through Jaden, through the debate and that sort of element, and I even quite liked the slightly patronising treatment of the Klingons. I liked the idea, but it just wasn't well explored and executed properly. But I had a real issue with why it is. So the way I've always complained how Picard made Picard too emo. Everyone's got to be damaged. It's all trauma drama, not. This is a species version of that. They can't have evolved and have a problem. They have to be at the brink of extinction to be worth exploring, and that's nuts. And so, even though I never thought I'd hear myself saying this, I felt bad for the Klingons. There you go.
I liked the sum of the parts didn't add up for me, but I liked a lot of the parts. I liked the performances. It looks like they shot on location for much of it, which I think really helped the episode, got it off, the ship. There was a lot to like there. But my biggest issue is we've seen this episode a million times in every other coming-of-age television show. If you even think about like Little House on the Prairie or any old Western where the kid has to learn how to get tough and, the dad sees him as something different, but, oh, look, let's show what you didn't really see. Oh, look at the dad missing on purpose. That kind of a thing is a cliche for a reason. It worked. I will acknowledge that, I was like, oh, okay. But did I see that coming from 1,000 miles away? Yes. Did I think the performers sell it? Yeah, I did, actually. But, again, do something different. Did it really need to be shooting, a bird in the sky? Again, we're looking at how many centuries later, and it's literally like being on the pioneer frontier in an old Western. And I appreciate what they were shooting for, no pun intended. I just think, and again, no pun intended, they missed the mark. But a valuable episode in terms of developing Jaden as a character. I think we get a lot of his spirit. I think we get a lot of his soft side. And I think that you also get the fact that he's just a different Klingon. And that is one thing I actually appreciate about this show, is, all right, we'll see some of the vulnerabilities of quote unquote the next generation of some of these species. So I do appreciate that. Again, you're doing a television show. You have to check certain dramatic boxes. There's only so much originality any show can have. You watch any sitcom, you've seen the plot 1,000 times. Yeah. Right?
Then execution
so it's all about the execution and the acting and the music and the cinematography is, selling something old as something new.
Yeah, I do struggle with his voice though still. That's one of the problems I've got with the Jaden character.
Yeah.
It's why are they post-treating it? Didn't they do that to Dawn in Nemesis?
Maybe.
Very slightly. They slightly altered his voice. After how many million trillion episodes?
Right.
the most prolific actor in Star Trek history. And then they changed it in one movie. Stuart Baird did anyway. But yeah, so that again, yeah.
His voice is not one of the ones that because I remember I mentioned that I've struggled with the dialogue sometimes. I've actually taken to watching it with subtitles, which I never do with English language stuff. Yeah. Because I do think the sound mixing is off.
You secretly Gen Z, are you?
but well, I as you know, I love my world cinema and foreign language films. I have no problems with subtitles, but it's very weird to me to watch something that is English language with subtitles. But I've had to do it because I've just missed lines. But his isn't one that I've struggled to hear.
Oh, that's because it's post-recorded. It's all ADR. It's heavily treated, and it sounds kind of like this. And that was a bit frustrating. I still find that frustrating. I like him. I think he's doing a great job of emoting under pretty heavy Klingon makeup. I mean, obviously, we're not talking Discovery Halloween mask level of full coverage, but still, it's just I find that treatment of the voice because it feels so ADR'd. I mean, they've got all that money. This is an expensive show, clearly.
10 to 20 million an episode, I just read.
Yeah, so let's spend some of that on making that voice bed in a bit more. Can we?
That's what AI is for. Come on. All right, let's get to the big debate on episode 5, and then let's throw all our praise at episode 6.
Well, can I offer my thoughts on this episode?
Absolutely not. No.
All right, fair enough.
No, go ahead. You know what? I changed my mind. No.
Right. So, Blade Runner is this futuristic science fiction.
You sit there saying all this in a 300 hoodie. I'm just pointing that out for the...
Exactly. Great film. And a great comic book. This episode really confused me first time I saw it. Because I thought that I'd missed something on the Klingons from not watching Discovery, and so I couldn't understand where they were at all. On the rewatch, I enjoyed it a lot more because I sort of it's not that I missed the general theme of the story or anything like that. I was just very confused by what was happening, and I really enjoyed the portrayal of Jaden's family and all of that stuff on the planet. I really liked that. It felt well thought out and lent into the what is a warrior. You don't have to be a fighter to be a warrior. You can be a warrior in a different way, which I felt was the central message of this episode. I also, for the first time, really liked Laura Thok in this episode.
I've always liked her. I know I'm weird. Everyone else seems to. Yeah.
I'd not really enjoyed that character much in the episodes up to this point, but I thought her little mentorship with Jaden was a really fantastic scene. I really enjoyed it. For me, that was the standout scene of the whole episode. Unlike you, I found... Is it Karim Diane? Is that how you say his name, Jaden? It's spelled Diane with an accent on the E. So I would say Diane, but I found...
We need him to attend a con so we can find out.
I found his performance in this episode a little bit wanting. I found his delivery, that could have sort of staccato style of saying things and then pausing. I found that, I don't know, it took me out of the moment, especially when he was arguing his case about the fate of the Klingon race. I don't know why. I mean, it must have been a choice for him
but Captain Kirk talks like this. That you are fine with because it's old track.
Kirk still sounds natural, and then
Are you sure?
and Jaden up to this point, and in episodes after that, I've not had that reaction to the way that he's delivered his lines. So it must have been a choice to show his anxiety over public speaking, but it took me out of the moment completely. And so from that point of view, I didn't like it. I also
Interesting. I hadn't thought of it that way, but I understand what you're saying.
Oh, me too.
I didn't really like the mock space battle at the end. For me, it's like, well, how does that satisfy Klingon honor, knowing that it was all just a fake and a ploy? So that was a bit problematic for me. And I've got a question for Rich, because he loves the ship.
I do.
Right. The Athena can warp without the nacelles. What's that all about?
You mean the primary hull can move without the nacelles?
It can warp without the nacelles.
Well, yeah.
It goes to warp without the nacelles. What's the point of having the bloody nacelles?
Go faster?
Ugh. Shut up.
I don't have an answer for that.
I'm annoyed at you, Rich.
I'm not working on the show, man. I like how it looks. I still have a strut attaching them if I could, but,
But this is the sort of nitpicky stuff that, like, I've got to try and get myself out of that. Thing.
Yeah, I agree. And I guess that's kind of what I'm saying about this episode is like you, Ian, I can see a good episode, admittedly a well-trodden story, but I too am allowing too many of these nitpicky things to bump me. But again, I think it's because they did demonstrate that they can do better. So, in the same way that sometimes, fan discussions about these things is you're not a true fan if you don't love everything in something. I guess I'm a fan of good drama first.
Yeah.
Same. I don't accept that argument of you have to love everything. We are and do criticize, but bottom line, we love Star Trek, and our criticisms are, nobody's listening to us at the Star Trek offices saying, oh, let's see what these three guys say about the show.
What? I'm outraged.
But realistically speaking, we're allowed to have and well, at least for the moment, we're still allowed in this country to have a voice and speak our opinion about things we like and don't like, or things that if we were in power would do differently, right?
Yeah.
And that applies to a television show and a franchise that we love.
Yep, agreed.
Let's get on to the Nanu episode.
Yes, I have that written right here. Sam talking to her makers reminded me of Mork talking to Orson in Mork and Mindy.
Sam calling
ding,
Cask,
ding, ding.
Come in, Cask.
Well, especially when you have that run of names for her, which is like going, your great fatitude and all that sort of thing, your immenseness, your huge cumbersomeness, and all the stuff that Robin Williams used to do to Orson. Yeah, absolutely right.
And the funniest thing is, do you know the Star Trek Mork and Mindy connection?
No.
The red costume, or orangey red costume.
Robin Williams was originally going to play Spock.
No. They wear one of the costumes from the original Star Trek in an episode of Mork and Mindy. It was recycled from the prop department, Paramount.
That makes sense. It's a small LA, isn't it?
Very.
So, right, okay, so series Acclimation Mil, the much...
Let's do Ian first. I want to hear Ian's.
You want to go with Ian first? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Ian,
all right, where do we start with this?
I've changed my mind, Rich. You go first.
Oh.
What's wrong with you two today? Why are we so angry?
We're just playing voice decorated.
I'm trying to get
give
my
back what he's been
inner
given.
Student and be
I
cantankerous.
understand, you bastard. There's so much about this episode that I like, and I love her performance. Talk about an actress getting the assignment and going there.
Yeah.
The issue is whether you think this character is the Neelix of this new show or not.
Poor Ethan Phillips.
I know. And I loved Ethan, and I actually liked the character.
Yeah.
And I will say this, he grew on me as a character as well, okay? I look back on Voyager, and I think he's an important character. I think it's a character they didn't know what to do with for way too much of the run of the show, right up to the finale. But this Sam character is a fascinating idea and really interesting. I love the way the other characters embrace her. I thought that was wonderful. But to do all that stuff like you're watching a video game with the animated light bulb and big job and all of that
it was very
just
TikTok. I think
yeah,
that's
it was
TikTok
very
generation stuff.
very 2026. Let's appeal to the kid audience.
Yeah.
Puking glitter. I'm sorry, what the actual fuck was that?
I actually quite liked that.
Ugh, come on.
I know. I don't know why. I was like, "Ooh, that's a good visual."
I love things like calling it intangible organic behavior. I thought that was great. I like the line, "If they can't explain themselves, how am I supposed to?" What's the point of such a long life if your memory is so short? There's lots of really interesting stuff in there. And then, I don't know, what else do you think we should be talking about with this episode? The Cisco?
Yeah.
All right, it goes to our whole conversation about how much fan service is too much fan service. Right?
Yeah.
So, on the other hand, I will forever love the line, "Emissaries who succeed lose everything they love. Emissaries who fail lose everything too." And yeah, we could talk about the book and the latest Dax iteration and all of that. And I also like the line, "He chose and was chosen all along." Here's an example for me. If you're going to do fan service, do it right. I thought they did here on that part of it. But again, there's a million other stories they could have told, but none of them would have had as much resonance as this dangling mystery. I've been reading up, and I know a lot of people have issues with this particular element of the episode, which is he never got home to his family, and he promised he would.
Yeah.
A lot of people have trouble with that. And, they kind of danced around it by saying, "Oh, he's always with us." I don't know if I bought that. But all in all, I appreciated what they tried to do with the episode. I thought it was a little overboard on the cute factor visually. Again, back to the glitter puke. Just did absolutely nothing for me. I literally shouted at my television when I saw that scene. I even played it back and just to see if I saw it right. And then one of the characters repeats, "Yeah, they vomit glitter."
Yeah.
Okay. So, yeah, that was my humble opinion.
I'd echo a lot of that. The thing about
As you should.
bit about the presentation I didn't like was like the handwriting thing. Like
that too. Yeah, that was part of it. Yeah.
Why is she writing like she's 10?
Right.
It didn't make any sense. And
because she's not 10, she's like
she's
6
only
months.
a few weeks old. Yeah,
but
a few months
she's meant
old.
to be 17, and also she's an advanced technological life form, so who can turn on ships by putting her hand into the
Well, no, learned how to write though.
Well, I know. Or
Maybe
you
type, but not write.
But there's a way
Can
to.
kids these days write?
And she writes in English.
Yeah, as well. There's that. So that was frustrating. The highlights for me was I thought Sirop Lofton was great.
Agreed.
Yeah.
In fact, arguably better than I often remember him on Deep Space Nine. He has grown, and he's we haven't seen him in very much since, but he had gravitas and grace and empathy, and it felt like everything you'd hope that Jake had become, actually. So when you talk about that point you made about the family, Ian, I thought he represented that closure and his stance.
And he made the point that he was as much a father to me as anybody who had their father in their life the entire time. I get it. And
I liked all that. And I like the conceit of having her be an emissary, and so that felt an organic, character-driven way to explore it. That made sense. So what you're saying about good fan service? It made sense. She's an emissary to the Federation, to Starfleet, from her people, so she's drawn to finding out about the emissary. I also liked, ultimately, and this one I've watched 3 times, because I kept vacillating on how I felt about Dax. I was bemused initially, then the second time around I hated it, and then the third time around I really quite liked it. So maybe that just says I'm inconsistent about how I feel about Dax.
But do you like tomatoes in your Creole?
I'm afraid I've only had gumbo once in New Orleans, and I think that had tomato in it, but I haven't got a big enough sample base.
Was it gumbo, not
I
Creole?
actually prefer tomatoes in mine, but go ahead.
I think for me, ultimately, I like the new version of Dax and the way it was done, because it makes a degree of sense. Even though I think now Dax will be the oldest living symbiont ever. Aren't they supposed to live like 600 years or something? Vaguely remember that. But I liked Tawny's character as that teacher already, is the way I would say it. I thought that was quite nice. I didn't get at all that she was half Cardassian.
No, me neither. I didn't recognise that as the makeup. I think it's the colouring.
Yeah, maybe. But also I found myself, and then also I was kind of like, oh, it's a new race, that's quite cool. But and then also I could have done without another hybrid. Just because it seems like a go-to at the moment. Whereas you could have had her be a trill and just had the hair covering up the spots. You could have done that, but maybe they were too worried that you wouldn't notice it. So anyway, and I did like that reveal. I liked the idea of... I think I'd like the new Dax more if we didn't have the Doctor, because that's the problem that, Ian, you've already highlighted multiple times, both in our previous discussion of the pilot and today, which is that he's had hundreds of years of living between Voyager and this, and yet he keeps referencing Voyager. Likewise, Dax had lifetimes before she was Jadzia, and they were explored, and that was talked about. And we didn't know about any of that beforehand, but they did that. So we better do that again now. That we know so much about the previous Dax hosts, and then we had Esri. I'd like to know about the other thing. So they've introduced that character. Now, if that character's function is purely to facilitate this episode, no, not a fan of that idea. If she's there and we get more Dax, which I'm hoping is true, because we know that Tawny Newsome because of Lower Decks, and also being a writer and a co-producer on this, and the driver, the primary instigator of this DS9 tribute, hopefully that means the character will return and be explored. As long as they do it that way. If it's just talk of DS9, if it's just Worf, Esri, Jadzia, Sisko, then that's not doing justice to the concept of the symbiont. So I like what they did. But as ever at the moment with this show, I hope it's where they go with it. That's going to be the thing for me.
Agreed.
And likewise, if they thread through Sam's emissary role, and that idea, and so that it is part of her, as they seem to articulate at the end of the episode, then great. Keep referencing DS9 and Sisko if it's done in that way as part of her progression and her someone she looks up to. Great. But it also did, we found out in episode 6, it did do its primary purpose, which is, spoiler, if you haven't watched it, when she gets hurt in episode 6, I gave a shit. I was a little bit about it, and I don't think I was before this episode. So, and I think, as you said, Ian, that's the will of that actor, who to some degree knows they might have a Neelix type character, but when given the room, a bit like Phlox for me actually, when given the room, the actor shows that there's more to this than this one note that they might have been written for previously. So the one thing I really, really, really didn't like, there's just one thing I really, really didn't like, is I don't know why they had the orb.
Over the typewriter?
No, the orb.
From the fictional world?
No, because
Danny Russell's typewriter?
No, that's something
no
else.
sense whatsoever.
That seems like a bit of canon fudge. I mean, like they fumbled that, but this is because she opens it and it's there, and they say it's an actual orb, not a recreation. Why didn't it do something? And if it'd just been a model, a replica, just in that museum, like the typewriter pulled from the whatever, then okay. But it wasn't. They said it was an actual orb, and so it just faded out. And I was like, oh god. So that's sort of that shows they don't quite know what to do. That they wanted to have that beat, the callback, the member berry, the fan service, without committing to her having a vision, without committing to her speaking to the prophet, without committing to showing the Celestial Temple, because that would imply she could meet Sisko. So that, and I love the fact at the end they'd had Avery's voice, but if it's not new. It's taken from his album of poetry, isn't it? So
I don't think that mattered. That sent shivers down my spine when he's.
yeah,
when
no,
I
it was
heard his
great. It
voice.
was great, but it is that thing of, you know, Tawny Newsom is on record as saying that he called them during the film of the episode to talk to them. He called Sirach, and he then spoke to them and gave them his blessing, which is great. I guess what this is representative of is a lack of confidence that they're going to do right by it, if you see what I mean. I want them to.
You know, it's interesting, Rich. I had no problem with the orb. I thought maybe they heard her, and that's when it shut off. Maybe it didn't interact with her. Maybe just the spirits out there heard her. Really interesting that didn't work for you. I had no issue with it.
Perhaps it facilitated the second visitation of Jake, you know, because the first one is a recording. The second one, she actually conjures that spirit up and has a dialogue with him.
Maybe, but I guess it's because there were rules with the orbs. You know, when you do
we don't know what type of orb that is.
Did they say? I can't remember if they say actually.
No, they don't say.
No, but it's just that because when you build your world, especially when you're building on an existing world mythology, and there are rules set, you can break them, but you have to establish it's a break, if you see what I mean.
Right, and the question becomes, will we ever see the Cisco Museum again?
Yeah.
On the show.
Yeah, and there's an orb sat in Starfleet. There's an orb of the Prophet sat in Starfleet. Okay. How do the Jorans feel about that? Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
cultural
overall,
appropriation.
Well, yeah, a little bit. Although I really loved the scene where she met with the Bajoran students.
Yeah, that was great.
That very funny.
It was very funny.
I agree with pretty much everything that you guys have said. The thing that stands out for me is I enjoyed the A plot. I didn't give a shit about the B plot. I think they could have jettisoned it all and just focused on her journey. I would have liked it. They decided to go on that kind of visual style at the beginning, the kind of, I'm going to call it Trek talk format, but then they didn't stay with it. And going to the dinner scene as well took you out of that. I would have liked it to have all have been kind of like her personal logs in that style. If they were going to go that route, I would have preferred if they'd stuck to it. I thought she was really great in it as well. I quite like her character. I'm not getting Neelix vibes at all. Actually, I'm finding her probably one of the most fascinating characters in the show, along with Carl and Jaden. And I loved the scene in the bar. I thought that was great. I kind of like that they're exploring that.
And he was wearing a scant. The scant is back.
It's not a scant. It's a full dress.
I think it was a scant.
It's not a scant.
Have you checked?
Well, Larry Nemeczek checked. And
I was Larry. Sorry, Larry.
Larry looked under the hood.
Yeah. Okay, Larry. If Larry says, I'll take it.
He's wearing the full dress.
Friend of the pod, Larry Nemeczek says so. Yeah. That's good enough for me.
Exactly.
But I totally agree. Carice Brooks is very good in this role.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She gets it. When she was dancing, I thought that was hysterical.
Yeah.
Getting drunk was great stuff. She played a good drunk.
I was fine with the comedy in the A plot. Yep. The comedy in the B plot was so Lower Decks silly, I'm going to say. And I have no problem. I love Lower Decks, but I think it belongs in Lower Decks. I don't think it gels here. And so, that aspect of it, I enjoyed a lot. But I was just getting such tonal whiplash when they flip between the scenes. You know,
well, it's co-written by Tawny
from
Lower Decks. I mean,
it was in that sense. Big word alert. It was one of the most pathetic episodes of Star Trek I've seen in a long time.
Ooh, good big word. But we haven't had one of those in a couple of weeks.
My three.
We're dragging out our greatest hits.
My three highlights was obviously Syrah. I liked that it was Dax. I can see the complaints, but I like that. And I was actually, when she was introduced earlier, I was like, oh, she's playing a bit like Dax, and she's wearing a blue uniform. And then when it turned out to be, I was like, oh, right, okay. and as I said, Avery has his challenges with Star Trek, shall we say? But when the Cisco line came out, I didn't care that it wasn't like a new recording, that it was taken from a jazz record that he did days ago. It genuinely sent shivers down my spine. But it may be that the fact that my three highlights are all DS9 related. And, what is that saying? It's not. I enjoyed the A plot. I enjoyed Sam's performance, but the things that I was like, ooh, were all DS9 related.
Yeah,
So.
I get that. Okay.
Well, again, it's the point that when fan service works, it works.
Yeah, and I think a lot of my, as I said before, I think a lot of my bumps come from a lack of confidence that they will see them through. They're not just token. They're for fan service rather than being plot driven. If they follow this episode through, then that'll be ultimately probably decide how it's how good it is, if you see what I mean. So, right. Episode 6, Come Let's Away. Now, I have very little problems with this. I really enjoyed it. I just sat back and enjoyed it. And I found it exciting. I liked the stakes, as I was saying before. I felt it bettered the team dynamic element that they had in the pilot. I liked the new villain, the new race.
A bit one-dimensional, but I mean, they were scary.
But they
were
start
creepy.
that way. They start that way. It was, it's like all the good aliens, like the Borg, were one-dimensional initially. They were scary, and that's hard to pull off, isn't it, nowadays with a new race? I really thought they came good on Braca as an idea, and I thought it gave Giamatti better grounding. I had less problem with his conversations with Holly Hunter this time around, and I liked the bait and switch of that.
Those were the best scenes in this episode.
Yeah.
I really liked this episode, but those are the best scenes for me, with the two of them sparring.
And specifically related to some of your comments earlier about Holly Hunter's character, Ian, I like the fact that what he pulled off knocks the smug off their face a bit. And that means they know she's the character smug, and they know that the stance of the show can be a bit smug. And that means, okay, right. So again, you've made a choice here to acknowledge that. Can you now develop it and move that forward and deepen it in the way that Prodigy did? That it became much greater and more resonant than I thought it was going to be. And so there's hope for this. So ultimately, it was exciting, it was engaging, I enjoyed it, I thought everyone was really good. Some of the broad stuff we talked about before is still present, some of the issues, but when it's this enjoyable, and the drama's good and the key conflict is good.
This was the one where story took over from character for me, and that was the turn. I want more of this stuff. I want the characters to develop through story, not the characters develop and then have stories built around them. And so
I agree with you 1,000%.
That's why this was the one that really I enjoyed, the most. There were still nitpicks for me.
I wouldn't have called it the Miyazaki. I think that's a little bit like Howl's Moving Castle in space.
I thought Caleb and Tarima, it was fabulous stuff. I love the chemistry.
Very sexy, super
and
fleshy.
Sexy. I enjoyed there was something there for the boys, there was something there for the girls, and there was something there for everybody in between.
Yeah.
And there was the love, the chemistry, the romance, straight up sex, you name it. The connection that was made through both sex and affection.
Yeah, I agree.
Which I thought was very well done.
Yeah.
I think Sandro Rosta and Zoe Steiner have beautiful chemistry together. I appreciate all of their scenes, even just the longing scenes work, or the scenes where the two of them were sitting on the ground talking later.
I even like her mind palace, whatever you want to call it. That can be tricky, but it was nice. It was well done.
It was really well done. The Furies, I think, are an excellent new alien. I'm like you. I want to see more of them and learn more about that species. I hope we see them in better light going forward.
I don't think they needed that extra effect on them. I thought the makeup was really good.
I'm not sure we needed that. And that'll be a pain in the butt every time we see him in the future, because how do you focus? What do you focus on? A line in the episode personifies what I both love and dislike, which is the enemy of my enemy, usually just another enemy. This one's an asshole. really good line of dialogue to start, and then back with one of these 90s comments. One of the other criticisms which really came to the forefront for me here was the lighting on the show when they were going through that tunnel-like thing for the fights, with the Furies. It felt like Tron to me.
Which we know is a big diss, generally.
No, not at all, really. But I don't need to see Tron in Star Trek.
That's fair enough.
Tron was Tron. And it looked like a video game, and it was that red, bright neon lighting. And there's a lot of that kind of thing on the show. Here you had what looked like hula hoops in that little, airlock. But the whole giant sets, the sets are so big that they have to have that thick lighting all the way around, just in terms of whatever you want to call them, bulbs or fixtures, all of that. I find it sometimes overwhelming, which I think is supposed to be a metaphor for the characters, what they're experiencing and how this is all overwhelming and, whatever. Did we need the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few or the one? Great to hear that line, but if you think about it for a moment, aren't there a galaxy of characters across the centuries they could have quoted? Again, it's one of the, and look, Star Trek, the original series, when they're quoting Abraham Lincoln, I get the problem.
You could say that because that was the Vulcan character, right, that said that. So you could say that Spock is a legend within
to them, but aren't there other Vulcan legends? Come on.
I know,
but he's the one we know, so that's the one you're going to quote
and stuff, don't we? So
right, and then looking for a needle in a haystack made of needles. I thought that was the best line in the entire episode. I just thought that was great. So I really, really, really like the episode. As I said earlier, I just want to reiterate it. I would have loved episode 6 being episode 2, just for the world building of the series.
I'd say maybe episode 3.
I was about to say exactly
that's where it would fit
you need
better
2
for me.
to get to this.
I think you have an action episode, you have a character episode, you have an action episode.
Although let's be honest, actually, if you took out 3 and 4, because you'd need this for Sam as well, because as I said, I cared a lot more about the character after episode 5. If you actually had it as pilot, episode 2, episode 5, and then this one, I think that would have worked brilliantly. I think it's just that middle bit that's making it feel too far away from the planet.
One day they may give us the production version of this. Remember, episodes of the original series aired out of order, right? There's production number and episode airing order. Same thing happened on Voyager. Where this one
would have had more effects were needed on it, so it should be that might have delayed
that too. And Next Gen had, 4 episodes that they carried over from one season to the next, right, to cover the strike.
Yeah, to bolster exactly right. I want to just comment on something you said, Ian, which was about the sets. One of the things so this is a sort of Kelvin universe legacy. The iMac shop, the Mac shop in space that the bridge became. It's not to say it's not well designed, but the thing that's been lost from the Kelvin universe on is that sort of submarine aircraft carrier type feel in space, the naval part about it, which obviously we know that Maya played up, but even the bigger scope ship of the motion picture still very much had places of confinement. You were supposed to be, it could be a little claustrophobic, and
which Enterprise totally nailed
exactly, and that's
and
what we've lost.
The word I would use there is intimacy.
Yeah,
you are losing intimacy for the characters and the stories when it does take place in such a large canvas.
Yeah, and I think partly that's interestingly, one of my observations would be that's partly because of the move from to widescreen for the TV series. So I mean, Enterprise did go into 16 by 9, but these are all 2.35, 2.4 to 1 CinemaScope ratio, and that's what I always thought why Abrams made the visual choices he did in the designs is because he wants to fill the frame, and then actually creates a counter problem for himself, as you've nailed with the lighting. That's why you need all the lens flares and you need all the, because you're trying to fill these cavernous spaces where there's the depth of field makes it really difficult. Whereas you go back and you look at the motion picture, or you look at any of the first 3 Star Treks, that shows you how to use how that works, and it gives you much more intimacy with the lens choices. I mean, that's a very technical criticism, but that's what I think most viewers may not be cognizant of that sometimes, but that's what it does. It distances you literally from the drama, and especially the bridge. I mean, I love, to go back to what you said, Tobes, I love the exterior design. That bridge is too big. It's just like, you should, the helm should be 2 steps away from the captain's chair.
Just in a battle, you wouldn't be able to hear anything.
No, but so you can have exactly what you said, Ian, intimacy when you come, so the captain can come and talk to the, and it's that shared purpose, and you should feel, and you've lost that sense that the bridge is at the very front of the ship. That sort of, it all feels too big.
I've got 3 things that I'd just like to say, and they are sort of negatives. I should reiterate that I really like this episode. It's my favourite so far. But the Vulcan character who died, okay, there were stakes, but I just didn't care about that character because I didn't get to know him at all. And he was a one-dimensional character to me. It didn't matter.
I don't agree with that. I quite liked him, but
I think that they're doing dirty by Combadge Girl. They're just making her the. I mean, I predict that in the season finale she's going to do something and it will save everyone. But at the moment, everything that showing like the negative side or being scared or stupid by eating a Combadge, or swallowing a Combadge, I should say. They're all being put on that character, and I think that's sort of being a disservice to.
Yeah, get her out of here now.
And the final thing I say, and this is just me and my sort of if this was real world time, having a derelict spaceship with a unique warp core,
Pegasus,
just floating out in space. I mean, where were the Ferengi? They would have been along and stripped that thing ages ago.
Their Ferengi are probably blown up.
So why not do that? Why not do this exercise on the holodeck? Is what I'm saying. We saw the holodeck in episode 3 in terms of where they were having their laser.
No stakes then, and I quite like the stakes of this one. Is what I'm saying.
No, I agree. I do like the stakes of it, but I think from that aspect of it, that did slightly irk me. But
we need to give props to Paul Giamatti. I thought he sold. I remember interviewing Gene Roddenberry back when I was in college, and he didn't love The Wrath of Khan. He thought The Wrath of Khan worked because of Ricardo Montalban's performance, that he acted the hell out of a role that was kind of cliche. I would argue the same thing with Paul Giamatti's character. We've seen this 1,000 times before, but, and some of that dialogue is just, again, the Sound of Music reference from this character? No. I'm sorry, he's never seen The Sound of Music. Some of that stuff just,
But I think he's a barking dog before that, and this episode actually gives him bite.
Some
bite.
I agree.
Yeah, I
agree.
So
to sort of round up, let's do our scores out of 10 for each episode. So episode 2, I would give an 8. Ian?
7 3/4.
Tobes?
6.5.
Episode 3, I would give 3. Ian?
3.5.
2.
Ooh.
Wow.
Episode 4, I'd give 5.
6 3/4.
6.
Episode 5, I would give 7.5.
I was going to joke I'd give 7 of 9.
Or DS9.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, I'll give DS9. Yeah, that's even better, actually. Wow. If you catch me at the wrong moment, I would give it a 5.5. If you catch me at the right moment, I would give it a 7 7/8.
Okay.
And a 6 for me.
And episode 6, I'd give a slam dunk 8. 8.5. 8.5. I really liked it.
I'm 8.5 as well, my friend.
All 3 of us, 8.5.
Yeah. So we're agreed.
Far away, my favourite.
Yeah, and I'm very glad that we saw that episode before we recorded, because it was like, okay,
this is what we're building to.
Because we all have to accept that all Star Trek shows have teething problems, and we forgive them when they emerge from those problems. So there's 4 episodes left. We will do a final review after the airing of the season finale on the 12th of March. And it's worth noting, episode 9, the penultimate episode, is the first Starfleet Academy episode directed by Jonathan Frakes. So that should be interesting. But what did you think? So obviously that's our opinions. We know that there's a wide range of responses going on out there to Starfleet Academy at the moment. We'd love to hear yours. Please drop us an email or comment on social media. All the details are in the description as ever. And please,
real humans only, please.
Yeah, no bots. And please rate and review the podcast if you enjoyed this. It's great to interact with our community. And other than that, we'll see you next time beyond the final frontier.
Peace, love, and logic, everybody.
And ta-ra a bit.
Thanks for listening to Beyond the Final Frontier, a Star Trek podcast with Rich Matthews, Ian Spelling, and Toby Weidman. If you want to get in contact with us, you can email us on beyondffpod@gmail.com or check us out on social media. You can even join our Patreon at BFF Beyond the Final Frontier. Huge thanks go out to Alex Weidman for the brilliant original music. Please search Alex Weidman Composer on YouTube to hear the full fantastic theme and more. Also thanks goes to award-winning voiceover artist Cissy Jones for our excellent opening monologue. Find out more about her incredible work at cissyjones.com. And of course, last but not least, our brilliant artwork comes from the designer Russell Seal. Discover more of his work on behance.net/Russell Seal. Thanks again and see you next episode Beyond the Final Frontier.